On the fateful night of September 12, an overwhelming darkness descended upon Russia, leaving its cities, from Moscow to St. Petersburg, and beyond, enveloped in chaos. As alarm bells clamored through the Kremlin, hundreds of drones, some launched from over 1,000 kilometers away, ravaged key military and economic targets, igniting massive fires and sending thick plumes of smoke skyward. Ports, air bases, and vital fuel depots were engulfed in flames, their destruction a stark reminder of the relentless Ukrainian offensive. Residents remained confined in their homes, unaware of the scale of disaster unfolding just beyond their doors. The Russian Defense Ministry claimed they intercepted 221 UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles, but this assertion felt hollow as reports emerged that many of those drones had indeed struck their intended targets. 3 significant sites, Smolensk, the Leningrad region, and the outskirts of Moscow, caught fire that very night. Explosions punctuated the silence, notably at the Lucille refinery near the Belarus border, sending ripples of alarm through the region. 8 blasts detonated in succession, resonating through the night and drawing attention to the ongoing crisis. While Smolensk's governor, Vasily Ionoin, reassured that air defenses were deployed, he subtly omitted details of the chaos, the roaring fires and intense explosions, to prevent public panic. The unmistakable sounds of rapid-fire destruction filled the air, creating a terrifying auditory backdrop to the images of devastation. Drones had slipped past defenses, reminding the world that no place was immune to the looming threat. As explosions continued to rumble, reports surfaced of significant hits on a critical oil depot in the Kardamovo settlement, nestled within the Smolensk region. Tank farms holding over 10,000 cubic meters of oil, central to regional supply, suffered catastrophic damage, underlining the strategic implications of the assault. This was not merely collateral damage, it was a purposeful strike that targeted the lifeblood of regional infrastructure. Then the narrative shifted. The Narofalmansk region, a mere 70 kilometers from Moscow, became another hotbed of air defense activity, with Russian sources confirming heightened military responses. Local witnesses spoke of bright lights illuminating the night sky, momentarily transforming darkness into day as drones and missiles collided with their targets. Narofalmansk held deep significance for Russia. It was home to the esteemed Kirovskaya tank division, a symbol of military pride. The fear was palpable. If strategic centers like this could be breached, what did it mean for the security of the entire nation? In the midst of this chaos, another striking attack unfolded in Tula. Ukrainian forces targeted an air defense facility, dismantling a communications tower pivotal to the military-industrial complex, a crucial development site for advanced weaponry. The implications reverberated throughout military circles and beyond, emphasizing the vulnerability of even the most fortified positions. As the dust settled in these formidable regions, the attack on the Primorsky port unfurled. Likely the most daring move yet. Targeted by Ukrainian drones, this hub punctured a vital artery of the Russian economy, responsible for exporting billions in oil revenue, a financial lifeline for Moscow's war efforts. Destruction at Primorsky was no mere tactical gain, it represented a seismic shift in the power dynamics of the conflict. With these strikes, Ukraine sent a clear, thunderous message. Crude oil, once a pillar of security for Russia, now stood on shaky ground. As global markets reacted to the uncertainty, the ramifications extended far beyond the battlefield. Disruption here could spell devastation for Russia and destabilize energy markets worldwide. Shockwaves reached as far as Japan, where new sanctions were imposed on Russia, tightening the noose around the Kremlin's financial resources. This was no ordinary diplomatic maneuver, it was a calculated effort to dismantle the foundation of Putin's offensive strategy piece by piece, echoing a relentless pursuit of vulnerability. Amid burning ports and strategic upheaval, the echoes of conflict reverberated with powerful clarity. The balance of power teetered on a knife's edge, with each drone strike signaling the dawn of a new era in warfare, where no stronghold felt safe, and every corner of the earth trembled beneath the shadow of impending chaos. On a fateful night, chaos erupted in Russia as drones descended from the skies, launching an unprecedented assault across the nation. From Moscow to St. Petersburg, flames leapt into the air, consuming strategic locations. This was not just another conflict, it was a wake-up call, announcing the dawn of a new era in warfare. The night of September 12 would be marked in history as the day the myth of invincibility was shattered. Explosions rang out relentlessly, as the quiet of night was pierced by sounds akin to thunder. Across various regions, including Smolensk and Naro-Fominsk, the pulse of the nation raced in terror. Emergency sirens blared as Russian air defense scrambled against the swarm of enemy drones. Despite the Defense Ministry's claims of intercepting over 200 unmanned aerial vehicles, the fire beneath the darkened skies told a different story. Tragically, among the chaos, key locations felt the brunt of the attack. An oil depot in Kardamovo, a facility pivotal to the region's supply chain, suffered devastating hits. With a staggering capacity of more than 10,000 cubic meters, this was no ordinary target, it was the heart of the operational lifeline. The fiery aftermath painted a grim picture for the regions flanking the great cities, a picture of vulnerability, anxiety, and a looming threat. As the explosions echoed through the air, the atmosphere crackled with fear. Residents described scenes of night turning to day as blinding flashes illuminated the dark sky. The nearby Naro-Fominsk, historically a stronghold for Russia's land forces, turned into a battlefield of its own. This wasn't just a random target, it was a symbol of military pride, housing elite divisions entrenched in both ceremonial glory and actual combat. Tula, another significant city, became embroiled in the nightmare as drones struck a military facility dedicated to developing advanced weaponry. A communications tower crumbled, extinguishing critical lines of defense. This was a calculated move that sent shockwaves through the heart of Russia's military apparatus. It was clear, the tides of war were shifting, and the narrative was about to change dramatically. What does this mean for the future? The creeping uncertainty, the din of explosions, each incident whispers a new reality. As regions burn and economies tremble, one question looms in the air: is Russia still the fortress it claims to be? The silence following the chaos was deafening, leaving behind not just embers, but a chilling reminder that the balance of power is ever precarious. In an unprecedented turn of events, the conflict that once seemed distant erupted violently, shattering the illusion of safety across Russia. On the night of September 12, chaos reigned from Moscow to St. Petersburg. A relentless wave of drone strikes ignited fires in ports and military bases, plunging the nation into turmoil. As alarm sirens wailed, residents remained isolated in their homes, unaware of the full scale of the devastation unfolding around them. In a swift and orchestrated assault, Ukrainian drones targeted critical infrastructure, making their way from distant launch points to strategic sites, causing major conflagrations at oil depots and military facilities alike. The aftermath was catastrophic, huge plumes of smoke rose above cities, and emergency crews struggled to respond as panic began to set in. Reports flooded in detailing the destruction. Air defense systems worked overtime to combat the threat, intercepting numerous unmanned aerial vehicles, but many still managed to breach their targets. Within the heart of the Smolensk region, explosions thundered in quick succession, overwhelming not just military installations but also debilitating vital energy resources. A governor, striving to quell public fear, understated the losses, but images of devastation leaked out, revealing a grim reality. Meanwhile, attention turned to the Tula region, where a drone strike decimated a communications tower pivotal to the Russian military-industrial complex, underscoring the operation's calculated precision. Yet, the real shock arrived at Primorsk port, the lifeline of Russia's oil exports, where drones inflicted damage so severe that shipments ground to a halt. This port, processing an astonishing 60 million tons of crude each year, was vital to the Kremlin's war funding, raking in billions annually. The attacks pounded not just individual vessels, 2 oil tankers registered overseas bore the brunt, but targeted the very heart of the military's economic machinery. As flames engulfed the Primorsk facility, panic spread through St. Petersburg's air traffic control, witnessing unprecedented flight cancellations and diversions. The ramifications echoed across the economy, shaking the foundations of Russian stability. This assault was a stark declaration: no longer could the Kremlin dismiss the potency of its adversary. With every drone that soared through the night, the resilient facade of invulnerability began to crumble. Are these attacks merely a prelude to a more significant confrontation, or is this the beginning of the end for Russia's dominance? Stay tuned, as the ground beneath the Kremlin shakes, and the world watches, teetering on the brink of an unsettling new reality. In the wake of shocking drone attacks that swept across Russia on September 12, darkness fell upon the nation as cities from Moscow to St. Petersburg became engulfed in flames, signaling a drastic shift in the conflict. Explosions rumbled across various regions, igniting fear and uncertainty as critical infrastructures were systematically targeted. As the midnight hour struck, chaos erupted, fires blazed in oil refineries, military facilities trembled under artillery fire, and panic gripped the populace while the Kremlin's defenses attempted to respond. Imagine a coastal port, just 100 kilometers from St. Petersburg, vital for Russia's oil exports, a gateway to both European markets and global energy supplies. This was Primorsk, where approximately 60 million tons of oil are processed annually. The loss of this strategic hub, generating an extraordinary $15 billion each year for Moscow's military agenda, was a painful blow to the Kremlin's war machine. With every hour of disruption costing $41 million, the shockwaves of these attacks rippled throughout the global economy, shaking supply chains and oil markets alike. Yet, these strikes hold deeper significance. They were not merely an assault on Russian infrastructure, they represented a direct challenge to the very image of invincibility that Moscow has worked so tirelessly to project. Ukrainian drones successfully navigated and breached hundreds of kilometers of Russian airspace, showcasing their capacity to strike at the heart of Russia's military and economic lifelines. This bold maneuver has shattered the illusion of security that has enveloped Putin's regime, igniting a political and psychological crisis within Russian borders. Furthermore, the implications of this assault extend far beyond Russia's walls. The war has now creeped uncomfortably close to Europe, with NATO nations like Finland and Estonia sitting mere kilometers away from the newly wicked flames of conflict. European leaders are reminded that the front lines of battle are not confined to Ukraine, they now brush against the very fabric of European security itself. Each explosion not only brings fire but also echoes a grim reminder that the risks of this war have seeped into the political dynamics of the continent. The third layer of this attack speaks volumes to international energy markets. Russian oil, long considered a staple investment, now lies perilously in jeopardy. With operations disrupted at Primorsk, detrimental effects spread across global markets, from shipping agreements to insurance costs. Ukraine's strategy aims not only to destabilize Russia's military funding but to strike at the core of its economic resilience, fundamentally altering the landscape of power and influence. In the dim light of the flames still flickering on the horizon, another unexpected twist emerges. Just as Primorsk finds itself embroiled in chaos, Japan announces new sanctions against Russia, slashing the price cap on crude oil and targeting key figures in Putin's circle. This diplomatic blow adds further pressure, pulling the threads of Russia's economic tapestry tighter. Leaving behind questioning gazes directed at what is yet to come. As these tectonic shifts unfold, the reverberations promise to shape the future of the conflict and redefine the very understanding of strength, security, and the cost of war. How far can Russia be pushed, and what remains when the foundations of such power begin to crumble? The answers lie within the expanding shadows of a changing battlefield, uncertain and electrifying with potential. In a shocking turn of events, the attack on Primorsk was not just a strike, it was a monumental challenge to the carefully crafted image of a powerful and invulnerable Russia. That night, in the corridors of power, Vladimir Putin's promises of safety crumbled to dust. The message of this act was loud and clear: the war has breached Europe's borders, looming ominously at NATO's doorstep. Just minutes from Primorsk lie the territories of Finland, Estonia, and Latvia, nations now painfully aware that they too can be touched by conflict. The flames from this attack have ignited fears throughout Europe, shaking the very foundation of continental security. Poland's recent interception of Russian drones serves as a stark reminder that the threat is no longer isolated. It's a call to arms, emphasizing that the stakes have risen from aiding Ukraine to preserving national sovereignty. But the implications extend far beyond military concerns. This assault signals a seismic shift in the global energy landscape. The once reliable Russian oil is no longer a secure investment. Disruptions at pivotal terminals like Primorsk ripple through financial markets, creating waves from insurance to freight contracts. Each attack chips away at Russia's war funding mechanism, compounding into a potentially catastrophic deficit for Putin's military ambitions. Imagine a giant water tank, each barrel of oil sold fills it up, but every blow against energy infrastructure slowly drains it. The ramifications could be staggering. if operations at Primorsk stumble for weeks or even months, the financial shortfall will be immense, enough to cripple the Kremlin's war budget. As fires still blaze in the Baltic, another unexpected strike looms from Japan. This nation, a bastion of economic discipline within the G7, has declared a reduction in the price cap on Russian crude from $60 to $47.60 per barrel. Additionally, Tokyo has rolled out a new wave of sanctions targeting 47 Russian companies and 9 high-profile figures, further tightening the noose around Putin's economy. At first glance, these moves appear routine. Yet, when examined closely, they reveal a calculated strategy, one that aims to sever the vital supply lines supporting Putin's war machine. Each step taken by countries like Japan acts as a surgical strike against the very heart of Russia's military capabilities, systematically dismantling the foundation upon which this conflict is built. The consequences are profound, shifting the balance of power, and challenging the notion of unassailable strength that the Kremlin has long portrayed. In a shadowy dance of power, the world stood still, holding its breath as an extraordinary event unfolded on the night of September 12. Across Russia, from Moscow to St. Petersburg, every light dimmed, replaced by the eerie glow of flames ravaging key strategic locations. An unprecedented wave of carefully orchestrated drone strikes scorched the earth, leaving chaos and panic in their wake. As the Kremlin's alarms blared, the citizens found themselves shackled in their homes, watching as the nation plunged into turmoil. The scope of this nightmarish assault was monumental. Hundreds of advanced drones, some launched from over 1,000 kilometers away, targeted vital infrastructures with chilling precision. Ports, air bases, fuel depots, all were enveloped in fiery destruction, resulting in a catastrophic shutdown of air travel and military readiness. Reports claimed that Russian air defense managed to intercept a whopping 221 drones, but what truly mattered were the unsilenced explosions that rocked essential sites. Fires ignited at the Lucille refinery, black smoke billowing into the night sky just outside Smolensk. The governor's assurances that defenses were in place did little to mask the horrifying reality. Multiple explosions echoed through the night, each one marking a tangible blow to Russia's economic and military heart. The sounds of chaos fused with the acrid smell of burning oil, sending shivers of dread down the spines of those who dared to listen. The attacks didn't spare Moscow either. One by one, emergency services scrambled to combat the flames and sound the alarms as drones breached the defenses, creating blinding flashes that turned night into day. Disturbed residents in Narofomynsk trembled as the echoes of destruction resonated through their homes. The air felt thick with tension, and the weight of uncertainty hung heavily, marking a stark turning point in the country's narrative. What unfolded next was nothing short of a geopolitical earthquake. As Ukraine targeted the heart of Russia's energy operations, particularly the Primorsky port, a critical artery for oil exports to Europe, a message rippled through the corridors of power: this war is at your doorstep. With every drone that hit its mark, the illusion of a fortified Russia crumbled. The flames bore witness to a shift in momentum. The Kremlin's long-standing narrative of invincibility flickered as the realization washed over European leaders. The conflict transcended Ukrainian borders, stirring unrest across the continent. Frantic whispers and urgent discussions emerged, warning them that their own security was now intertwined with Ukraine's fate. The staggering financial implications were not overlooked either. Annually, the Primorsky port funneled $15 billion into the Kremlin's war chest. Each day of disruption carved an estimated $41 million loss from Moscow's coffers, threatening the very machinery of war that sustained it. But the stakes were higher. It wasn't just economic strain, it was a signal that Ukraine was willing and able to confront one of its most formidable adversaries with unwavering resolve. As Moscow simmered in desperation, news from the Far East added fuel to the fire. Japan's decisive move to reduce the price cap on Russian crude oil and impose sanctions on significant players in Russia's network brought a new, daunting chapter to the story. Japan understood the stakes. They weren't just inflicting economic pain but targeting the very lifeblood of the Kremlin. Putin's war budget, likened to a massive water tank, was now being drained not just by Ukrainian attacks but by an international coalition tightening the noose around its energy exports. Every missile fired in this tragic conflict echoed a grim reality: the funds that fueled relentless warfare were drying up. Each deliberate strike on energy infrastructure weakened the regime further, creating an inevitable shift that history says could lead to its collapse. Andriy Yermak, President Zelensky's chief of staff, clearly articulated the broader strategy at play. Any profit from Russian energy sales funding war efforts posed a moral affront to nations striving for peace. Ukraine's relentless pursuit of this strategy marked the dawning of a new era, a hope for rebuilding, a signal of resilience in the face of overwhelming odds. These moments of destruction and defiance were more than just a series of events, they were the very pulse of a revolution calling for change. Who will emerge from the ashes? What will the future hold as the mechanisms of war clash against the relentless spirit of a nation fighting for freedom? In an extraordinary turn of events, on a seemingly ordinary night, darkness enveloped Russia. Just hours after midnight on September 12, the tranquility was shattered from Moscow to St. Petersburg. Cities ignited as swarms of drones swept across the skies, targeting vital infrastructure with relentless precision. Ports, air bases, and fuel depots were engulfed in flames as unyielding waves of drone assaults wreaked havoc. The chaos transformed reality into a surreal nightmare, with the Kremlin on high alert while civilians remained locked behind closed doors, unaware of the imminent storm brewing outside. The attacks, originating from hundreds of kilometers away, struck crucial locations in rapid succession, leaving devastation in their wake. Russian officials claimed to have intercepted an impressive number of unmanned aerial vehicles, yet the profound damage inflicted by those that breached defenses told a different story. Fires ignited in Smolensk, the Leningrad region, and near Moscow, as reports of explosions flooded in, illustrating the sheer scale of the operation. In response, anxious governors downplayed the catastrophe to maintain calm. However, the images of blazing oil depots and the sounds of ongoing warfare painted a far grimmer picture of the truth. It was more than a mere attack, it was a catastrophic blow to Russia's operational capabilities. Smolensk, a pivotal region, bore the brunt of these unforeseen strikes, marking a significant shift in the conflict's trajectory. But there was more, as strategic strikes also targeted Tula, a communications hub integral to the military-industrial complex, became a casualty, disrupting the very frameworks that sustained Russia's military ambitions. Simultaneously, the port of Primorsk, often regarded as the lifeblood of Russia's oil export to Europe, found itself under siege. The damage inflicted here was unprecedented, it was the equivalent of severing the Russian economy's arteries, critically crippling their war funding. A colossal $15 billion annually was at stake. This port didn't merely export oil, it fueled a war. The attack sent shockwaves through the global energy markets, a sign that Russian oil, once considered stable and secure for investment, was now under threat. The implications were astronomical, not just for Russia but for energy-dependent nations worldwide. As the embers cooled and new dawns approached, Japan unexpectedly emerged as a key player in this geopolitical chess game. It effectively reduced the price cap on Russian crude oil and enacted new sanctions, punctuating global disdain for Russia's military actions. This, however, was more than a transactional maneuver, it was a visible manifestation of a unified decision among allied nations to dismantle the sources of Putin's power. Andriy Yermak, a pivotal strategist within the Ukrainian leadership, articulated this moment of clarity. Every barrel of oil sold by Russia fueled another missile assault, closing in on innocent lives and potentially reshaping the very fabric of European security. And while Russia was left scrambling to salvage its oil sales, Ukraine thrived, ramping up its military production and logistical capabilities with newfound vigor. Questions loomed large in the air. Would the United States align itself with this concerted effort to capitalize on the shifting tides, or would it remain an onlooker? The stage was set for a fierce battle, not only for resources but for the destiny of nations. The attacks were not merely disruptions, they were declarations of an unfolding war strategy. The Baltic flames still flickered as further battles approached, hinting at an ignited momentum towards a reality where Ukraine's resilience could overturn the scales of war. As the events of that infamous night unfolded, a critical escalation in warfare emerged. Targets in Smolensk and the Leningrad region faced not mere disruptions but a complete paralysis of their supply chains. Explosions rocked the region, obliterating oil pipelines and crippling railway networks. The heart of logistics, Smolensk, merely 400 kilometers from Moscow, became an unintended front in the conflict, exposing the vulnerabilities within Russia's air defense systems. This strike was not just an attack, it was a revelation. The Kremlin, once a titan, found itself grappling not just on the battlefield, but on its own streets, the roads leading to the capital under siege. This wasn't merely darkness overwhelming several Russian regions, it was a signal, a stark reminder of the fragility underlying an empire's vast facade. In this modern warfare landscape, cunning strategies and advanced technology have begun to overshadow brute force, spotlighting a key truth: Putin was losing his grip on time. Time, rather than being an ally, morphed into an adversary. His war apparatus, built on oil revenues, faced relentless erosion far outside the physical war zones. In the hushed chambers of Tokyo and the strategic committees in Brussels, formidable counteractions took shape. Meanwhile, Ukrainian industries thrived anew, shifting the momentum of power dynamics. While Russian firepower still echoed vividly across Ukrainian territories, the real battleground had shifted. The comprehensive impact of economic factors began to lay the groundwork for a transformation in power. It is said that the true strength lies in financial foundations, and this was one domain where Putin appeared increasingly vulnerable. In light of these developments, can Russia indeed navigate through this complex web of economic and military challenges? Or might these calculated strikes signal a decisive turning point, the beginning of the end for the Kremlin's long-standing control? The stakes have never been higher, and the answers to these questions linger in the air like smoke from the recent blasts. What further twists await in this ongoing saga of power and survival?